This is Alice Nafik, and I'll be talking about loneliness and isolation during perinatal loss. So, to start off talking about loneliness and isolation, I think that it's important to discuss why exactly we don't talk about perinatal loss as much as we should. So, I think a big contributor to this is the fact that it's really common nowadays not to share that you're pregnant with others until the first trimester is over. And this is a big contributor to this fact is because the risk of miscarriage is just really high during the first trimester. So approximately 80% of all pregnancy occurs during the first trimester. So this means that if someone does have a loss during the first trimester, many women go through this loss alone, and others may not even know that they're pregnant, which means the parents of the child may have fewer emotional supports because people just don't know that there was a pregnancy, and there are fewer conversations about the loss being had, and therefore fewer opportunities for emotional support to be given. I think another thing that's really important to take into consideration is just the visibility of pregnancy loss. So thinking about a loss in the first trimester versus after the child is born looks very different. So again, others may not even know that someone was pregnant or that they are going through a loss because they weren't visibly showing it to others. So this makes it easier for someone to keep the loss to themselves. And the fact that it is rare to share a miscarriage makes others less likely to discuss their loss because they may feel that it's not as common as it truly is. And this kind of further feeds this cycle of misconceptions that perinatal loss is not common and shouldn't be discussed, which is a very false misconception. So I think next it's important to talk about why we tend to isolate during this time of deep loss. So one reason may be because we don't want to share our deep hurt with others. So if we are going through grief and loss and we're around others, they may ask how we're doing, if we're okay. And an honest answer would bring up these deep feelings of sadness and loss. And the reality is, we may just not have the energy to get into our emotions with other people, or we may just not have the energy to pretend that we're doing okay when we really aren't. So there's also an expectation that others just will not understand what we're going through, or they may not know how to respond. So we may think it's easier to just not put that on other people, and avoid having that situation where they feel that they have to respond and give us emotional support. So another thing that may contribute is that we think that we can handle this loss ourselves. And there's an idea that, I can handle my loss by myself. I can cope with it. I don't want to burden other people, which can also feed into these feelings of possibly guilt and shame, maybe saying that, oh, the loss is my fault. And this can be due to a lack of awareness for how common pregnancy loss really is. So it is common that we don't feel like we can share it with others, and sharing it with other people, maybe admitting that something is wrong with us when in reality there is nothing wrong with us, and we have much less control over pregnancy loss than we think we do. So I'm going to get into kind of the importance of both solitude and social connection during perinatal loss. So solitude is not a bad word. It's definitely not a bad thing to want to isolate ourselves during this time. I think that solitude is really important for remembering our loved ones. It allows us time to sit with our grief, kind of feel our emotions, and process our feelings in a way that we don't feel like we could if we were in front of other people. It allows us time to kind of understand what life is going to look like now that we have gone through this loss, and taking time to kind of look inward and address this emotions and address our new reality. So while solitude is definitely important, it is important to remember the difference between solitude and loneliness. So if we're beginning to feel more disconnected from others and we feel like we want to begin sharing our emotions with close loved ones, it may be time to consider reaching out to some safe people in your life. So I want to talk about how reaching out can help us during perinatal loss as well. So it may feel daunting to talk about such deep loss with other people and the emotions you're going through, how it has impacted your life, but reaching out can provide a deep sense of relief. And just having someone listen can really validate your emotions and provide some connection. So having someone just sit there and bear witness to what you're experiencing may help you feel a little bit more supported and connected to your loved ones and feel like you don't have to carry this heavy burden all by yourself. So allowing yourself to be vulnerable with other people as well opens up the opportunity for them to be vulnerable with you as well. And so that gives an opportunity for them to share their own stories of loss and give emotional support and continue to grow feeling a bit more socially connected and emotionally supported. So my last slide is just basically saying that both solitude and social connection are important in this process, but it's important that you find the right balance for yourself. So that balance will look different for everybody. So you may need different types of emotional support from others depending on who it's from and what your emotional needs are at that time. So you could let others know what type of emotional support you feel like you need depending on what you're going through. So reaching out and saying, hey, I would love to just have like a very brief check-in with you right now and kind of like talk about some of the stuff I'm going through. Or you may want to have a bit of a longer conversation with them about what you're feeling and what the loss was like for you. But it really just depends on your emotional needs at that time. And I think, again, it's important to honor what you're going through and what your body and your soul needs. So, isolation doesn't mean that you don't want to connect with others. You just need some time to step away and reflect by yourself. And conversely, seeking out social support doesn't minimize your grief, but it can make that load feel slightly lighter. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next episode.